Whose child is that?
You found me carrying plates, and the first thing you want to know is which man touched me. Ask Mofe what happened to the original concrete reports from Harbour Crest.
Pick it up. The wealthy guest dropped his napkin beside Simisola Alo's swollen feet and pointed at the floor as if he were commanding a dog. You people collect salary, yet ordinary service is difficult for you. Bend down and pick it. Simi gripped the silver tray against her 7-month pregnancy. Her ankles were swollen. Her back was burning. Still, she lowered herself carefully. Then a chair crashed backwards. Do not touch that napkin. Every voice inside the private dining room died. Akinwale Balogun, CEO of one of Nigeria, Alo's biggest property companies, stood at the head of the table, staring at the waitress as though he had just seen a ghost. Because the pregnant woman wearing that cheap brown uniform was not a stranger. She was his ex-wife. The woman who had disappeared from his mansion 8 months earlier, without taking her jewelry, her car, or 1 naira from their joint account. Wale Alo's eyes dropped to her stomach. Whose child is that? Simi slowly straightened, pain flashing across her face, but she did not cry. She did not run into his arms. She looked straight at the man she once loved and said, You found me carrying plates, and the first thing you want to know is, which man touched me? Simi, ask your company what they did to me. The room went silent again. Then she leaned closer and whispered the words that drained every drop of color from his face. Ask Mofe what happened to the original concrete reports from Harbour Crest. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from and your local time right now. Subscribe and stay with this story. Because what Wale discovered next did not only explain why his pregnant wife left him, it exposed a lie powerful men were ready to bury with innocent people inside it. For 3 seconds, nobody in the room moved. Not the investor whose fork was suspended halfway to his mouth. Not the board chairman, Olubunmi Fashola, who had built a reputation for hearing danger inside ordinary sentences. Not Mofe Alade, the group chief operating officer who sat 2 chairs away from Wale, with one hand resting beside his untouched glass of water. Only Simi moved. She turned from Wale, bent with slow care, picked up the napkin herself and placed it on the side table. The guest who had dropped it cleared his throat. I did not know she was your… my what? Wale asked. The man opened his mouth, then closed it. Simi lifted the tray again. I am still working, she said. Her voice was quiet. That made it worse. Wale stepped into her path. You are not carrying another thing. She looked at his hand, blocking her way. Move, Simi, I said, and I said move. The old instinct inside him rose immediately. The instinct to command a room, end an argument, sign a paper, settle a matter. For years, people had obeyed Wale before he finished speaking. Ministers returned his calls. Banks extended deadlines because he asked. Contractors stood when he entered a site. But Simi had never been impressed by the sound of his own authority. That had once been one of the things he loved most about her. Now, under the soft amber lights of Palm Court Kitchen, it felt like a knife turned in an old wound. He stepped aside. She walked past him. Mofe reached for his glass. Wale, perhaps we should continue this discussion later. Wale turned so sharply that the room seemed to tighten around him. What happened to the original reports? Mofe did not blink. I have no idea what she is talking about. Harbour Crest. I heard her. Then answer me. Mofe leaned back, patient as a senior uncle handling a difficult younger man. It was a posture Wale knew well. Mofe had used it when Wale Alo's father died, and the company almost collapsed under debt. He had used it when bankers stopped taking Wale seriously, because he was only 31 and grieving. He had sat beside Wale through 18-hour negotiations, funerals, strikes, lawsuits, and one attempted hostile takeover. Tonight is not the place, Mofe said. We have investors at this table. Olubunmi folded her hands. Mr. Allard is correct about one thing. This is not the place. But the matter has been raised in front of the board. It will not disappear because dinner is inconvenient. The guest who had insulted Simi stared down at his plate. Wale could still see her moving between tables through the glass partition. She walked carefully, one hand occasionally pressing the base of her spine. She had become thinner in the face. Her cheekbones were sharper. The small gold studs she always wore were gone. So was the wedding ring he had taken off only after their divorce order became final. He had told himself she left because she wanted to punish him. That was the story Mofe had given him. That was the story the lawyers had reinforced. Simi was emotional. Simi had become too involved in matters outside her department. Simi had copied confidential files. Simi had threatened the company Aloe's pending investment round. Simi had walked away from mediation. Simi had refused every generous offer made through counsel. For 8 months, Wale had been angry enough to believe all of it. Now she was 7 months pregnant. His mind began counting backward whether he wanted it to or not. 8 months since she left the house. 7 months of pregnancy. The weekend in Abeokuta before everything broke. The rain against the hotel windows, her sleeping with her head on his chest while his phone rang twice and he ignored it. Wale Illo's stomach tightened. He shoved his chair back. "Meeting is over," one of the investors protested. "We have not discussed the revised debt terms. You will receive them tomorrow." "Well," Olubunmi said, "do not make decisions from shock." He looked at her. "Then tell me what decision a man should make after finding his pregnant ex-wife serving food in a place where one of his business associates ordered her to bend like an animal." Olubunmi Aloe's face hardened, not at him but at the guest. The man finally stood. "I apologize. Madam, I apologize." Simi had re-entered with another tray. She paused. "Apologize to the next waitress before you know who she married," she said. "That is where the apology will count." Ronke Akinyemi, the restaurant owner, appeared at the doorway. She was not tall, but she carried herself like someone who had fought too hard for her business to be frightened by expensive suits. "Mrs. Adegoke, come with me." Simi followed her out. Wale went after them. Ronke stopped him in the corridor. "She does not want to speak to you. She is carrying my child. You do not know that. I know the dates. Then perhaps you should also know the date she came here asking for work." He stared at her. Ronke Aloe's jaw tightened. 3 months after she left your house, she had sent applications everywhere. Banks, NGOs, property firms, consulting companies. People praised her CV. Then stopped returning her calls after speaking to your group Alas Human Resources Department. That is not possible. It happened. I never authorized anyone to blacklist her. Ronke gave a humorless laugh. Powerful men love that sentence. I did not authorize it. I did not know. Nobody told me. Meanwhile, the damage still carries their surname. The door behind Ronke opened. Simi had removed her apron. Up close, the exhaustion in her face was impossible to miss. Wale took 1 step forward. She lifted her palm. "Do not. I need to know if the baby is mine. You need to know many things, Simi." Her eyes flashed. "Do not use that voice with me. You used it the night you asked me to surrender my laptop, as though I was a criminal. You used it when I told you somebody had changed those reports. You used it when your lawyers sent men to my flat to demand company property while I was vomiting from pregnancy." Wale Aloe's face went still. "You were already pregnant? I found out 2 weeks after I left. Why did you not tell me?" "Because the same week I found out, your company accused me of stealing confidential documents and threatened to report me. Because your chief operating officer had access to your house, your staff, and your lawyers. Because you had already chosen who to believe. I did not know about the pregnancy. No. You only knew the version of me that made you innocent. He flinched. That was when Ronke looked away. Not out of embarrassment, but because some truths were so private, they made strangers feel like intruders. Wale lowered his voice. Let me take you home. I have a home. Let me pay for your medical care. We will discuss the child through proper channels. You are standing for hours. And people who are not married to CEOs stand for hours every day. Do you notice them? He had no answer. Simi picked up her handbag from a shelf behind the door. Ask Mofe about the first test report from Durojai Materials Lab, she said. Ask why Nosa Osagi was removed from Harbour Crest. Ask why his settlement was signed while he was still on pain medication. Then ask your IT department who used your digital approval while you were flying to Dubai. Wale Alo's breathing changed. You know about the approval. I know because I was still inside the system when they began rewriting history. Where are the originals? She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, Not with you. She walked past. Wale reached for her arm but stopped before touching her. Simi, wait. She did not turn. Is the baby mine? Her shoulders became rigid. Ronke watched her. Simi looked back over one shoulder. Yes. The word entered Wale Alo's body like a bullet. Then she added, But being the father does not make you safe. She left through the staff exit. Wale remained in the corridor long after the door closed. When he returned to the dining room, the investors had gone. Only Olubunmi and Mofi remained. Mofi was standing now, buttoning his jacket. She always knew how to stage a scene, he said. Wale looked at him. Something small shifted inside his mind. Mofe had not asked whether the baby was Wale Alo's. He had not expressed surprise that Simi was working as a waitress. He had not asked what reports she meant. He had gone straight to discrediting her. How long have you known where she was? Wale asked. Mofe Alo's hand paused on the second button. I did not know. That was not my question. I said I did not know. Olubunmi rose from the table. Well, go home. Do not confront anybody tonight. Tomorrow morning, we will request the full Harbour Crest document history. Mof Alo's expression remained calm. Of course, he said. There is nothing to hide. Wale drove himself back to Ikoyi. He had not driven alone at night in years. His security car followed at a distance, but inside the black Range Rover, there was no assistant, no driver, no voice to interrupt the things circling his head. The house looked exactly as Simi had left it. That was the worst part. The cream armchair she chose from a furniture maker in Ibadan. The framed black and white photograph of Lagos Island before the high-rises. The clay bowl she bought during a road trip to Osogbo. The wall near the kitchen where she had marked the height of her niece during Christmas visits. Wale had refused to change anything, because anger made preservation feel like victory. He entered his study and opened the company portal. Harbour Crest Estate appeared under active developments. Phase 1, 93% complete. Projected handover, 6 weeks. He opened the structural assurance folder. There were hundreds of files. Site inspections, contractors' certificates, material test results, payment approvals, safety incidents. He'd searched Durojai Materials Lab. No results. He searched Nosa Osagi. One personnel memo appeared, reassigned for failure to follow reporting lines. He opened the concrete test report, dated 8 months earlier. The compressive strength results were within acceptable tolerance. The report carried 3 approvals: Project Manager, Chief Operating Officer, Group Chief Executive. Wale Alo's electronic signature sat at the bottom. He checked the timestamp, 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. His pulse began beating in his ears. That Tuesday, He had been in the air between Lagos and Dubai. He remembered because the flight Wi-Fi failed, and he spent 6 hours angry that he could not approve a financing memo before landing. He opened the access log. The approval had been executed through the delegated signing function attached to his office. That function existed because he had authorized it. Mofi had argued that executive travel was delaying operations. The solution was simple. Pre-cleared documents could be placed into a signing queue and released by the CEO Alo's technical aid under limited authority. Wale had accepted it without reading the control note carefully. He opened the version history. Version 1, archived. Version 2, withdrawn. Version 3, final. He clicked version 1, access restricted. He tried again using administrator credentials. File not. Wale sat back slowly. For years, he had believed fraud announced itself with missing money, forged signatures, and frightened accountants. No, sir. Protocol requires notify the board chair only. Another pause. Yes, sir. Wale ended the call. He remained in the study until dawn, staring at the signature that belonged to him and the decision he could not remember making. For the first time since Simi walked out, he allowed himself to ask a question he had carefully avoided. What if she had not abandoned him? What if she had escaped? 8 years earlier, Simi had first met Wale inside a community hall with 3 broken ceiling fans and 47 angry tenants. Balogun Habitat Group wanted to clear a row of old buildings in Ebute Meta for a mixed-use development. The company Alo's presentation promised modern shops, safer housing, and new jobs. The residents heard only one thing: leave within 30 days. Wale had arrived in a navy suit, prepared to speak for 15 minutes and leave before traffic worsened. Simi, then a program officer for a housing rights organization, stood after his presentation. Your compensation schedule values. People Alo's walls, she said. But not their livelihoods. Where will the woman selling food downstairs find the customers who have bought from her for 20 years? Wale glanced at his watch. The package follows statutory requirements. That was not my question. A few residents clapped. He looked at her properly then. She wore a plain green dress, low heels, and an expression that did not care how many people were on his payroll. We are offering relocation assistance, he said, for 6 months. What happens in month 7? We cannot support people forever, no. But you can stop pretending displacement ends the day a check clears. The room erupted. Wale had been irritated for the rest of the meeting. Then he read the proposal Simi submitted afterward. It was disciplined, practical, and cheaper than the reputational battle his lawyers expected. The company adopted most of it. 2 months later, he invited her to lunch. She assumed it was a professional meeting and arrived with a folder. He laughed. Do you carry evidence everywhere? Only when meeting property developers. That answer stayed with him. Their courtship was not dramatic. No helicopters. No hotel bought for 1 evening. Simi disliked spectacle, and Wale, though wealthy, had been raised by a father who counted every unnecessary expense aloud. They ate suya by the roadside after formal dinners. She corrected his speeches in red ink. He taught her how to read a project cash flow model. She taught him that a development could be profitable and still be unjust. When they married, people called Simi lucky. She hated that word. As though Wale had discovered her beside a gutter and lifted her into civilization. As though she had not brought education, judgment, work, and courage into the marriage. Wale understood why it annoyed her. At least he claimed to. For the first 3 years, he made space for her voice. Then Balogun Habitat Group expanded. His father died. Debt matured. A foreign investor threatened to withdraw. Mofi, who had worked with Wale Alo's father, became the man who knew where every buried problem lay. He negotiated extensions, calmed contractors, and protected Wale from older executives who thought grief had made him weak. The company survived. Wale learned the wrong lesson from survival. He began to believe speed was wisdom. If Mofi said a contractor could be trusted, Wale trusted him. If legal said a complaint was contained, he moved on. If a report reached his desk with 3 signatures, he signed last and asked questions later. Simi watched him become efficient at everything except listening. He cancelled dinner for site meetings. Calls during counseling sessions they had started after 2 years of trying unsuccessfully for a child. Slept with his phone under his pillow. Returned from work, carrying silence like another briefcase. Still, she loved him, and he loved her. Love was not what failed first. Attention did. The first complaint about Harbour Crest came from a woman named Mrs. Eckenham, who had paid a deposit for a 2-bedroom flat in Block C. She sent photographs to Simi Alo's department. Thin cracks ran from the corners of 2 window openings. Rainwater pooled in a stairwell that had supposedly been waterproofed. A subcontracted labourer had told residents that part of 1 floor was poured after midnight, following a delay in concrete delivery. Simi forwarded the images to operations. The response came 6 minutes later: cosmetic defects, rectification ongoing, no structural concern. She asked for the engineer Alo's assessment, no answer. 2 days later, she drove to the site without announcing the visit. Harbour Crest stretched across reclaimed land along the Lekki Eep corridor. It was marketed as dignified housing for teachers, nurses, civil servants and young families priced out of central Lagos. Giant banners showed smiling couples holding keys beneath the words, "Built for real life." At the gate, a security officer tried to stop Simi. "My name is on your executive access list," she said. He checked twice before allowing her through. That was the first sign something was wrong. Staff usually recognized her. The second sign was Nosa Osagie. She found him beside Block D, arguing with a project manager. "I will not sign it," Nosa said. The project manager saw Simi and lowered his voice. "We will discuss later." "No," Nosa replied. "We have discussed for 2 weeks." Simi approached. "What will you not sign?" Both men went quiet. Nosa was 38, lean, careful in speech, and known for irritating contractors with too many questions. He had worked on 2 previous Balogun developments without controversy. The project manager forced a smile. "Routine documentation." "Then show me. It is technical. I know how to read." Nosa looked at her, making a decision. The 7-day and 28-day concrete cube results for sections of blocks C, D, and F were below design strength, he said. The project manager hissed. "That is not final." "Were they below?" Simi asked. Nosa nodded. "The first laboratory said so. We were instructed to continue work while another set was tested. Why? Because stopping would affect the handover schedule." The project manager stepped closer. "Madam, there are technical remedies. Engineers are handling it." "Which engineers?" He did not answer. Simi asked Nosa to walk with her. They moved between stacks of blocks and coils of electrical conduit. Away from the others, Nosa showed her photographs on his phone. The first laboratory report carried figures lower than those in the company system. He had photographed both. "Who changed it?" Simi asked. "I do not know. Who told you to sign?" "The project director said the instruction came from operations." "That means Mofi?" Nosa looked toward the site office. "I did not say that. You did not need to." He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Madam, I have 3 children. My wife has just opened a pharmacy. I am not looking for trouble. Unsafe concrete is already trouble." "I know. Keep copies of everything. Do not alter a report. Do not sign what you cannot defend. Nosa gave a tired smile. That advice is easy when your husband owns the company. Simi held his gaze. My husband does not own the laws of physics. 3 days later, scaffolding collapsed along the side of Block F. Nosa fell 2 levels and landed on a temporary platform. His left leg broke in 2 places. 4 laborers suffered cuts and fractures. One man, Bamidel, needed surgery for a shoulder injury. The company statement called it a subcontractor safety lapse. Mof phoned Simi personally. Do not visit the hospital, he said. Why? Operations is handling it. These men are stakeholders in the project. They are injured workers, not a community engagement opportunity. The contempt in his tone made her grip the phone harder. I did not call them an opportunity. You have a habit of entering matters outside your mandate. And you have a habit of calling human beings matters. He went quiet. Then he said, I am advising you as someone who has known your husband longer than you have. Do not turn a technical incident into a moral crusade. Simi went to the hospital. Nosa was drowsy, his leg raised in traction. A junior legal officer from the company stood beside his bed with documents. What is he signing? Simi asked. The lawyers stiffened. A support agreement. Nosa Alo's wife, Amara, looked confused. They said, the company will pay the hospital bill if he signs. Simi took the document before the lawyer could stop her. It contained a confidentiality clause, a release of claims, and an acknowledgement that the accident resulted from Nosa Alo's failure to observe site safety instructions. He is on pain medication, Simi said. The terms were explained. To whom? To his family. Amara shook her head. They only said it is for treatment. Simi handed the papers back. He needs independent legal advice. The company lawyer Alo's expression changed. Madam, with respect, this is an internal legal matter. With respect, an injured man is not internal property. By evening, Mofe had called Wale. Simi knew because her husband entered the bedroom after midnight and placed his phone on the dresser with unusual care. Why did you interfere with Nosa Alo's settlement? He asked. She was sitting against the headboard reading. Did Mof tell you it was a settlement? He said, support agreement. It releases the company from liability and makes Nosa accept blame. Our lawyers drafted it. That does not answer whether it is fair. Wale loosened his tie. Simi, do you know the full facts? I know he was medicated. Do you know why the scaffolding failed? No. That is why nobody should force him to sign before an investigation. He was not forced. You were not there. Neither were you when the accident happened. The words struck harder than he intended. He saw it, but tiredness made pride faster than tenderness. Simi closed her book. I went to Harbour Crest before the accident. The concrete results were changed. Wale stopped unbuttoning his shirt. What? She told him about Nosa, the laboratory report, and the construction continuing despite concerns. He listened with an expression she could not read. Then, he asked, Did you copy any documents? The question chilled her. I saw them. That was not what I asked. Why is that your first concern? Because company data cannot be removed casually. People could be buying homes built with substandard material. And if there is a technical issue, operations will address it. Operations may be the issue. While Alo's jaw tightened, Mofe helped keep this company alive. And that means he cannot be questioned? It means I will not accuse him based on photographs on one engineer Alo's phone. I am asking you to investigate. I will speak to him. Not him, an independent person. Wale laughed once without humor. You want me to commission an external investigation because a report was revised. Because the revision hid a safety failure. You do not know that. I know the numbers changed. You are not a structural engineer. No. But numbers do not need a degree to remain the same. He looked away. Simi studied him. Wale, when did you last visit that site? I receive weekly reports. That was not my question. He did not answer. She saw for the first time that the man who once admired her refusal to accept rehearsed answers had begun to resent it inside his own house. The next morning, her system access failed. At first, she assumed it was a password problem. Then Human Resources called and asked her to remain at home pending a review of unauthorized data handling. She phoned Wale. He did not answer. Mof did. It is temporary, he said. You locked me out. The audit log shows files were sent from your account to an external address. I sent community complaint records to the organization assisting residents. That is part of our partnership. Some attachments contained restricted project information. Which attachments? You will receive a formal notice. She drove to the office. Security refused to let her upstairs. People who had greeted her as Mrs. Balogun the previous week avoided her eyes. By noon, Wale finally called. Go home, he said. You authorized this. I authorized a review, without speaking to me. I am speaking to you now, after taking away my access. Simi, please, do not make this worse. That sentence followed her home. Do not make this worse. As though the truth had entered the company through her body, as though silence was the natural condition and she was the disruption. That evening, Wale came home carrying a printed file. He placed it on the dining table between them. Emails. Access records. A message supposedly sent from Simio's account to an outside consultant, attaching procurement details and a preliminary bid analysis. She read it twice. I did not send this. The system says you did. The system is wrong. The recipient is connected to the housing organization where you used to work. I know him. That does not mean I sent it. Wale pushed another page forward. Your login credentials were used. So investigate who had access. Your password is your responsibility. She looked at him in disbelief. You think I leaked a bid? I think I need facts. I am telling you a fact. You are telling me your position. Something in Simi Alo's face changed. Wale saw it and kept speaking because stopping would mean admitting he had gone too far. The board is concerned that you have blurred the line between your role and our marriage. You have contacted staff outside your reporting structure. You removed internal documents. You interfered with a legal settlement. I stopped a drugged man from signing away his rights. That is your interpretation. No, Wale. It happened in front of me. We cannot run a listed group on emotion. Is that what you call conscience when a woman brings it into the room? He exhaled sharply. You are my wife, Simi. You are not my auditor. The silence after that sentence was so complete, they could hear the refrigerator compressor click off in the kitchen. Simi stood. That is the problem, she said. You only hear the truth when it comes from a man carrying a report. She went to the bedroom. Wale followed. What are you doing? She pulled a small suitcase from the wardrobe, taking myself out of the conflict of interest. Do not be dramatic. Her hands stopped. Dramatic. I did not say our marriage is over. You froze my access, accused me of leaking documents, and asked me to surrender my laptop. But because you have not pronounced the marriage dead, I should sleep beside you tonight? I am trying to protect the company and us. From me? From a scandal. She nodded slowly. There it was, the honest answer. Not danger, not fraud, not unsafe buildings, scandal. She packed 4 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, toiletries, and a folder from the bottom drawer. Wale stood near the door, anger turning into fear. Where will you go? To Ronke's place. Let us speak in the morning. I have been speaking for weeks. Simi. She lifted the folder. It held photographs from Harbour Crest, notes of dates and names. copies of community complaints and the first concrete test figures Nosa had shown her. Wale reached for it. That belongs to the company. She stepped back. It belongs to the people who may sleep inside those buildings. If you leave with confidential files, legal will come after you. Are you threatening me? I am warning you. She looked at the man she had trusted with her body, her plans and the private grief of every failed fertility treatment. Then she said, I cannot tell the difference anymore. She walked out with one suitcase. She left her jewelry in the safe, her car key on the console, her bank card for the joint account in the bedroom drawer. Wale did not stop her. He told himself she would return when she calmed down. 2 weeks later, in Ronke Alo's guest bathroom, Simi stared at 2 lines on a pregnancy test. She sat on the closed toilet seat and began to laugh. Then the laughter broke into tears. For 3 years, she and Wale had waited for those 2 lines. They had paid doctors, counted days, prayed politely in public, and cried separately in private. She had imagined calling him from the bathroom, had imagined his face, had imagined placing the test in a small box because happiness deserved ceremony. Now her phone lay on the sink beside a legal notice from Balogun Habitat Group. Return all proprietary materials within 48 hours. Cease communication with current and former employees concerning Harbour Crest. Failure to comply may result in civil and criminal action. At the bottom was a warning that the company would protect itself against any person attempting to use private marital access for commercial leverage. Simi read the final line again: private marital access. They had converted her marriage into a security breach. She placed one hand over her stomach, though there was nothing to feel yet. Then she switched off her phone. At 8 the next morning, Wale entered the executive conference room and found Olubunmi already seated. Mofi arrived 2 minutes later with a leather folder and the expression of a man attending a routine inconvenience. The head of information security joined by video. So did the group legal director and the chief internal auditor. Wale did not waste time. Show me every version of the Harbour Crest concrete reports. Mof placed his folder on the table. Before we begin, I must say that last night Allah's circumstances could affect your objectivity. While Allah's eyes narrowed. My objectivity did not sign into the system while I was on a plane. The legal director shifted in his seat. Olubunmi spoke. Proceed with the records. The information security head shared his screen. We preserved the current repository and available audit logs at 3:42 a.m. There are 3 versions of the relevant report. Version 1 was uploaded by the project quality officer. Version 2 was uploaded 12 days later. Version 3, the approved version, was uploaded 2 days after that. Open version 1, Wale said. It is not present in the active storage. Retrieve it from backup. We are checking the archive. Who deleted it? The log marks it as migrated during a document management update. Who requested the migration? The man hesitated. Operations Systems Administration. Mof leaned forward. Thousands of files were migrated that quarter. Who in your office? Wale asked. I do not supervise file movement personally. Then give me the names of those who do. Mof Allah's mouth tightened. Of course. The auditor displayed the digital approval chain. Wale's signature had been released by an executive systems aide named Chinedu Opara, using delegated authority. Where is Chinedu? Wale asked. He resigned 5 months ago, the legal director said. Why? Personal relocation. Who processed his exit? Operations and human resources. Mof spread his hands. This is becoming theater. A delegated signature is not a forgery if the underlying document was properly cleared. And was it? Olubunmi asked. The final report showed acceptable results. That is not an answer. Mof looked at her. Madam Chair, Technical findings are often revised after further testing. One laboratory result does not condemn an entire structure. Wale leaned toward him. Where is the first laboratory report? I do not know. Why was Durojai Materials Lab removed from the project? Mof paused for half a second. Wale saw it. Commercial dispute, Mof said. What dispute? Billing and performance. Produce the termination file. I will ask procurement. No. You will sit here while procurement sends it. Mofe Alo's face hardened. Well, be careful. You are allowing a domestic grievance to turn into an accusation against people who have served you faithfully. Served me? Wale asked quietly. Or served the company? You know what I mean. I am beginning to think I do not. The meeting lasted 4 hours. By noon, they had more questions than answers. The Durojai termination file was incomplete. The letter cited inconsistent turnaround times, but payment records showed the laboratory had been paid promptly until the week it issued the failed results. The replacement laboratory had been appointed under an emergency procurement exemption. The approval memo carried Mofe Alo's recommendations and Wale Alo's electronic signature. Again, Wale had been abroad. Again, delegated authority had been used. The internal auditor found one more irregularity. Nosa Alo's personnel file contained a performance warning dated 2 days before the scaffolding accident. The warning accused him of insubordination and refusing to certify completed work. Nosa had never signed it. Mof remained composed. Difficult staff often refused to sign warnings, he said. Wale stared at him. You knew he refused to certify work. I knew there were disagreements. You told me he caused the accident by ignoring procedure. I said his conduct was under review. No. You told me he had been careless, Mof sighed. You are reconstructing a conversation from 8 months ago. I remember because my wife repeated your words to me, and I used them against her. The room became still. Olubanmi closed the file in front of her. We need an independent investigation. Mof Alo's response came quickly. That will trigger disclosure obligations. Investors may suspend the financing round. Buyers may panic. We should complete an internal technical review first. By whom? Wale asked. The same operations team that lost the first report. You are not thinking commercially. No, Wale said. For once, I am trying to think before commerce. Mofe Alo's eyes changed then. The fatherly patience disappeared. You inherited a company that was weeks from collapse, he said. Do not forget who taught you how decisions are made when every option has a cost. Wale held his gaze. And do not forget whose name is on the buildings. Mof gave a slight nod, as though Wale had confirmed something. That afternoon, Wale drove to the address listed in Nosa Alo's old personnel records. It was a modest duplex in Gbagada. A small pharmacy occupied the ground floor frontage. The sign read Amara Community Pharmacy. Wale entered without security. A woman behind the counter recognized him immediately. Her expression closed. My husband is not here. Mrs. Osage, I need to speak with him. He does not work for you anymore. I know. Then leave him alone. Wale looked toward the staircase. I believe what happened at Harbour Crest was not properly investigated. Amara laughed once. Believe? I am trying to correct it. Your wife tried. You called her a thief. The words landed with such precision that Wale did not defend himself. A chair scraped upstairs. Nosa appeared slowly, using a walking stick. His left leg remained stiff. He had gained weight around the face but looked older than 38. Let him come, he said. They sat in the pharmacy storeroom among cartons of medicine and bottled water. Wale placed his phone face down on the table. I am not recording you. You own enough lawyers to say anything later. I came without one. That does not make you harmless. Wale nodded. Fair. Nosa studied him. What do you want? The first concrete results. You should ask your company. I did. And they are missing. Nosa gave a bitter smile. Things disappear easily in offices. On sites, concrete remains. Did the first results fail? Yes. How badly? Not every sample. Enough to require a stop, investigation, and possibly core testing. We should not have continued as though nothing happened. Could the buildings collapse? Nosa frowned. That is not a question I can answer from cube results alone. People like dramatic words. Collapse, disaster, death. Engineering is more disciplined than fear. The correct answer is that the results created uncertainty, and uncertainty about structural capacity must be investigated before occupation. Wale absorbed the rebuke. What happened after you refused to sign? The project director told me to reconsider. Then I received a warning. Then the scaffolding failed. Do you believe the accident was deliberate? No. The answer surprised him. Nosa leaned forward. Do not create a movie where there is already enough wrongdoing. Nobody needed to push me from a building. They only needed to normalize shortcuts. The scaffold inspection had not been completed that morning. The crew was under pressure. Materials were moved carelessly. That is how people get hurt in real life. Not always because one wicked man loosens a bolt, but because 10 people are afraid to delay a deadline. Wale sat back. That sentence stayed in the room. 10 people afraid to delay a deadline. A system built from small obediences. Do you have copies? Wale asked. Nosa did not answer. I can protect you. Nosa Alo's face became cold. Your wife said something similar. After that, your lawyers came to my hospital bed. I did not know the agreement was presented that way. You signed the culture that allowed it. Wale looked down at his hands. Nosa continued. You CEOs like to imagine responsibility as a document. If your signature is absent, your conscience is clean. But everybody on that site knew one thing. Schedule mattered more than bad news. Where did they learn it? Wale had no answer. Nosa opened a locked metal cabinet and removed an old tablet wrapped in a plastic bag. I photographed the first report, he said. I photographed messages too, not because I was brave, because I was afraid they would blame me. He turned on the device. There were photographs of concrete cube labels, test sheets, and handwritten site notes. One message came from the project director. Do not circulate Durojai result. Operations arranging confirmatory test. Continue non-critical works. Another, 2 days later. Group wants no delay. Adjust narrative to preliminary anomaly pending validation. Wale read slowly. Who is Group Alo? Nosa shrugged. On site, that usually meant head office. Did Mofi contact you directly? Once. He called after I copied Simi on an email. What did he say? He said I should respect reporting lines. He said people who misunderstood commercial pressure often destroyed their own careers. Did you record it? No. Would you testify? Nosa looked toward the storeroom door, where the faint sound of Amara speaking to a customer carried through. I have children. I understand. No, you do not. Your bad month is still wealth. Mine can remove my children from school. Wale accepted that too. What would make it possible? An independent process. Legal protection. No private promise from you. I can arrange that. Not arrange. Submit to it. Wale looked at him. Nosa. Alo's voice softened, but only slightly. If the truth depends on your goodwill, it is not protected. When Wale left, he found 3 missed calls from Simi. His heart lurched. He called immediately. Ronke answered. She is at St. Catherine Alo's clinic in Yaba. What happened? She nearly fainted during her shift. Wale was already moving toward his car. Is the baby? The baby Alo's heartbeat is fine. The doctor says she is exhausted and anemic. I am coming. Come calmly. He drove badly anyway. At the clinic, Ronke sat outside an examination room, holding Simisola handbag. She rose when Wale approached. You cannot enter until she agrees. I am the father, and she is the patient. He stopped. The old Wale would have called the clinic director. Would have turned status into access and access into entitlement. He sat instead. 20 minutes later, the door opened. A doctor in her 50s stepped out. Mr. Balogun? Yes. She has consented to speak with you. Keep it brief. Simi lay propped against pillows. Without her uniform, in a loose hospital gown, the size of her pregnancy shocked him again. A monitor traced the baby Alo's heartbeat in quick, steady beats. Wale stood near the door. May I come closer? She nodded once. He moved to the chair beside the bed. What did the doctor say? That I need iron rest and fewer hours on my feet. Then stop working. The words came out like an order. Simialo's eyes hardened. Wale closed his own briefly. That came out wrong. It came out familiar. I mean, I will cover your expenses. I do not want an allowance that can become evidence that I depend on you. This is not a court strategy. Your company turned my pregnancy into risk before you knew it existed. He leaned forward. Let us document everything. Through lawyers, if that makes you feel safer. Medical costs, housing, support. Whatever is needed. Simi watched him carefully. No condition? No condition. No moving back to your house? No. No public announcement? No. No asking the doctor questions after I leave the room? Wale swallowed. No. Her gaze shifted to the monitor. The rapid heartbeat filled the silence. Is she mine? He asked. Simi looked at him. The doctor said it is a girl. His face changed before he could control it. A daughter. For years, he had imagined a son, because that was what his father imagined for him. But the word daughter broke something open in a different place. Is she mine? He repeated. Yes. Wale covered his mouth with one hand. He did not cry dramatically. His eyes simply filled, and he turned his face away because shame had taught him to hide tenderness. Simi saw anyway. When were you going to tell me? When I had legal protection, and somewhere you could not remove me from. I would never take your child. You told me legal would come after me if I left with documents. That was about the company. That night I was your wife. You spoke to me as the company. He lowered his hand. I was wrong. It was the first clean apology he had given her. No explanation behind it. No request for immediate forgiveness. Simialo's face did not soften. I know. Wale nodded. I met Nosa. That got her attention. He showed me the original figures. Wale continued. There were failed results. The files were changed. My delegated signature was used. Your signature? Yes. Did you authorize that system? Yes. Then do not call it only somebody using your signature. He looked at her. She was exhausted, underpaid, publicly humiliated, and carrying his child. Still, she refused to give him the comfortable lie that he was merely another victim. I know, he said. No, Wale. I need you to understand. Mofi may have manipulated the process, but he succeeded because you built a company where bad news had to be sweetened before it reached you. He did not interrupt. People learned that deadlines pleased you, she said. They learned that Mofi could translate any ethical problem into commercial language, and you would accept it. They learned that when I raised a concern, you asked whether I had exceeded my mandate. That is not one corrupt man. That is a culture. While Elo's throat tightened. What do you want me to do? Do not ask me to design your conscience. I am asking what justice looks like to you. She studied him for a long moment. Stop the handover until the buildings are independently tested. Protect Nosa without buying his silence. Restore every employment reference your people poisoned. Investigate who changed the reports. And include your own decisions in that investigation. If I stop the handover, the financing could collapse. Simialo's eyes closed briefly. There it was again. Cost first. Wale heard it this time. He corrected himself. That is not a reason to continue. I am telling you the consequence, not defending it. She opened her eyes. That difference matters, she said. The doctor returned and told him Simi needed rest. Wale stood. At the door, he turned back. Simi. Yes? I loved you. Her expression did not move. I know, she said. Love was never the reason I left. Safety was. Outside the room, Wale called Olubunmi. I want an independent compliance investigation, he said. Not internal audit. External. Olubunmi was silent for a moment. Are you prepared for your own conduct to be examined? Wale looked through the small window in the door at Simi lying beside the monitor. Yes. Do you understand you will not control the findings? Yes. Then I know who to call. Zainab Garba arrived at Balogun Habitat Group the following morning with 2 lawyers, a forensic accountant, and no visible interest in Wale Alo's reputation. She was 44, wore round glasses, and carried one slim notebook. Before the first interview, she laid out her conditions. My team reports to the Board Audit Committee, she said. Not to you. You will not select witnesses. You will not receive daily findings. You will preserve devices, messages, and personal email where company business may have been conducted. No employee is to be disciplined, transferred, or contacted about testimony without clearance. Mof sat across from her. This is excessive for a disputed technical report. Zainab turned to him. Then the investigation will conclude quickly. He said nothing. She faced Wale again. Your title does not make you a client. You are a subject with governance responsibility. I understand. Most executives say that before the questions begin. Olubunmi almost smiled. Zainab continued. One more thing. No public statement describing this as a misunderstanding, a marital dispute, or an isolated employee issue. Language can become obstruction when it is designed to narrow facts before they are established. Mofi Elo's pen stopped moving. Wale noticed. The investigation began. For the first week, the investigation produced nothing dramatic. No secret vault, no confession, no single document labeled F-Road. Instead, Zainab Alo's team found ordinary things arranged in an extraordinary pattern. A procurement exemption approved because delay was said to threaten financing. A laboratory removed for service failure 3 days after reporting weak concrete. A replacement laboratory hired through a consultancy with no public website and a registered office above a tire shop in Ikeja. A series of payments divided into amounts just below the level requiring audit committee review. A human resources note instructing staff to refer all external inquiries about Simiti to the group legal director. A legal script describing her departure as a breach of trust. None of those items alone proved the entire scheme. Together they formed a road. And every road seemed to pass through Mofe Alo's office. Wale was interviewed on the 4th day. Zainab began with simple questions. Who approved delegated digital signatures? I did. Why? To reduce delay while I traveled. What controls did you require? Pre-PERTA clearance by legal, finance, and the responsible executive. Did you review whether those controls worked? Not personally. Who? Did. Operation systems and internal audit. Internal audit reports administratively to whom? Wale paused. The Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Alade. Yes. Then the person whose division benefited most from rapid approval also controlled the administrative resources of the team meant to test the approval system. Wale looked at the table. Yes. Did your wife ever raise concerns about that concentration of authority? She raised concerns about Mofe's influence generally. What did you do? I defended him. Why? He had earned my trust. Zainab adjusted her glasses. Trust is not a control, Mr. Balogun. He accepted the sentence without argument. She continued for 6 hours. She asked about board papers he had skimmed, complaints he had redirected, bonuses tied to delivery dates. Meetings where executives were praised for solving delays, without any discussion of what had been sacrificed. At one point, she placed a printout in front of him. It was an email Wale had sent to all project directors 14 months earlier. I do not want problems. I want solutions. Anyone who brings delay without a recovery plan is not ready for leadership. He remembered writing it after a project missed its launch date. At the time, it sounded decisive. Now he saw the hidden instruction. Do not bring me a problem unless you have already made it acceptable. What effect do you think this had? Zainab asked. Wale rubbed his forehead. People may have hidden problems. People hid problems. Why? Because I rewarded certainty and punished delay even when delay was necessary. Yes. She wrote something in her notebook. By the time he left, Wale felt as though somebody had removed the walls of his office and shown him every stain behind them. That evening, he returned to Palm Court Kitchen. He did not book a private room. He did not bring investors. He sat alone at a corner table near the kitchen doors. Ronki approached with her arms folded. She is not working today. I know, the doctor ordered rest. Then why are you here? To understand what I failed to see. Ronka looked around. This is a restaurant, not a spiritual retreat. I want dinner. She handed him a menu. For 2 hours, Wale watched. A waitress carried a tray heavier than the one Simi had held. A customer snapped his fingers at her without looking up. A young busboy apologized after a child knocked over a glass, though the spill was not his fault. A kitchen porter emerged with steam shining on his face, ate 3 bites while standing and returned inside before his break was finished. The labor was everywhere. Not hidden, exactly. Simply ignored by people who believed service appeared because they paid for it. Ronki brought his bill herself. How long did Simi work here? He asked. 4 months. Why did she not take a management role? She did not want me inventing a title out of pity. We had no management vacancy. You could have told me. She asked me not to. She was carrying my child. She was carrying herself first. Wale took out his card. Ronka did not move the payment machine closer. Your group damaged her references, she said. I am investigating that. No, investigating is what institutions say while people continue paying the price. What do you expect me to do before the findings are complete? Correct what you already know. He looked at her. Ronka counted on her fingers. You know she did not steal money. You know she performed her job well before this. You know employers were directed to legal when they called. You know the company Aloe's description made them afraid. Why must she wait for a final report before you stop repeating a lie? Wale left the restaurant and called the human resources director from his car. Effective immediately. All employment verification regarding Simisola Adigok must state her dates of service, positions held and performance record before suspension. No reference may describe her as dishonest or under criminal investigations unless supported by a formal finding. The director sounded nervous. Sir, legal, instructed, legal answers to the company, not the other way around. Should I copy Mr. Alaid? No, copy the board chair and Zainab Garba. The next morning, Mof entered Wale's office without an appointment. You are interfering with the investigation, he said. Wale did not look up from the document he was reading. By correcting an employment reference, by making unilateral changes connected to a witness. Simi is not only a witness, she is a former employee whose record we damaged without a finding. You are proving my concern. Which concern? that you cannot separate guilt from judgment. Wale closed the file, and you cannot separate control from loyalty. Mof Alo's nostrils flared. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Mofi sat without being invited. "I knew your father for 26 years, he said. He understood that companies survive because somebody is willing to make decisions decent people prefer not to see. My father also refused to build on land where drainage tests failed. Your father ran a smaller company in a slower market. And you think growth excuses dishonesty? I think a group with 4,000 direct and indirect workers cannot behave like a debating society. Harbour Crest had a fixable quality issue. If we had stopped work publicly, lenders would have frozen the facility, buyers would have demanded refunds, and subcontractors would have failed. People'd still suffer. So you changed the report? Mofi smiled faintly. You are fishing. I am asking. I did not change any laboratory result. Did you instruct anyone to keep Dorojai Alo's report from circulation? I instructed the team not to create panic before confirmatory testing. Did you remove Dorojai? Their relationship with the project became unworkable. Because they would not revise their result? Because they acted as though one failed batch was a headline. Wei leaned back. And Nosa? Nosa was technically competent and commercially immature. He was injured, he was compensated. He was asked to accept blame while medicated. Mo Fallow's face showed irritation. Your wife has filled your head with moral language. Every settlement involves compromise. My wife warned me before the accident. Your wife wanted influence without accountability. Wale stood. Do not speak about her that way in my office. Mof stood too. There. That is exactly the problem. You are not acting as CEO. And what does a CEO look like to you? A man who never asks who pays for his efficiency. A man who understands that leadership is not confession. Wale walked around the desk until they stood face to face. No. Leadership is not hiding behind the people who obeyed you. Mof buttoned his jacket. You will regret humiliating people who protected your inheritance. Wale's voice became very quiet. Is that a threat? It is experience. He walked out. 2 days later, the first article appeared online. CEO Alice, pregnant ex-wife, at center of billion naira comparate blackmail claim. The story cited unnamed company sources. It said Simi had copied confidential materials before leaving her marriage and was now using an unborn child to pressure Wale. It described the Harbour Crest review as a private dispute disguised as a governance concern. A photograph showed Simi leaving St. Catherine Alo's clinic with one hand covering her face. By 8 in the morning, the story had been republished across blogs. By 9, strangers had found her social media page. Gold digger, failed wife, pregnant thief. One comment asked whether the baby even belonged to Wale. Simi read 6 comments before Ronk took the phone from her. Stop. They know the clinic. You are not staying here alone. I cannot keep running every time they publish a lie. This is not running. This is security. Simi paced the small sitting room of her Surulere flat. The article says, I demanded money. I have not demanded anything. Then your lawyer will respond. A response will become another headline. The doorbell rang. Ronka checked the peephole. It is Wale. Simi Alo's shoulders tightened. Let him in. Wale entered carrying no briefcase. His face looked as though he had not slept. I did not authorize that story. Simi laughed bitterly. There is that sentence again. I know. Do you? Yes. I know not authorizing damage does not undo it. That stopped her. Wale placed his phone on the table. The article contains information limited to legal, operations, the board, and the investigation team. Zainab is tracing access. I have asked the company to issue a statement denying that you made any financial demand. Asked? Legal says a denial could expose the investigation. Simisola expression hardened. Then legal can expose itself. I agree. She looked at him, surprised again. Wale continued. The statement goes out today. It will say you raised safety concerns before leaving, that no finding of misconduct was made against you, and that the company regrets language previously used in employment inquiries. Will it say the baby is yours? Only if you want that public? No. Then it will not. Ronke watched him carefully. Simi sat down. The restaurant lost 2 corporate bookings this morning. Wale looked at Ronke. Because of me? Because somebody called clients and suggested Palm Court was involved in leaking confidential information. Ronke said. Who? They did not leave names. Wale's jaw clenched. I will compensate. No, Ronke cut in. You will not buy bookings from me. Find who is applying pressure and stop it. He nodded. Fair. Simi looked between them. I should resign. Ronke turned on her. No. This is hurting your business. You earned your job. I cannot let staff lose shifts because of me, and I cannot let wealthy people decide who I employ. Wale spoke carefully. She is right. Simiola's head snapped toward him. Do not make this a moment where everybody decides for me. He stopped. Ronke knelt in front of her. Then decide after the doctor clears you to work. Not because cowards made phone calls. Simi looked away, fighting tears. The company statement was published by noon. It did not erase the insults, but it changed the direction of the questions. Reporters began asking why a former executive had been described as a threat, without any formal finding. Buyers at Harbour Crest demanded confirmation that the buildings were safe. One bank requested information about the independent review. The pressure moved from Simi back toward the company. Mof moved faster. He called an emergency meeting of the board, Akinwale's risk committee, and submitted a memorandum, arguing that Wale had compromised the investigation by publicly supporting his ex-wife, altering her employment references and privately meeting witnesses. He also warned that lenders could withdraw if the CEO continued making statements that suggested structural defects before technical review was complete. By Friday, 5 directors had signed a request for Wale's temporary suspension. Olubunmi called him before the meeting. You have votes against you, she said. How many? Enough. Mofi organized them. That may be true. It does not make every concern false. Wale stood at the window of his office, looking down at the traffic along Kingsway Road. What do you think? I think you corrected a wrong employment record. I also think you acted without documented board approval during a sensitive investigation. Waiting would have prolonged the harm. Yes. Governance is often slow while harm is immediate. That is not a reason to abandon governance. It is a reason to improve it. He pressed his fingers to the glass. If they suspend me, Mof becomes acting CEO. Most likely, he will control the records. Zainab Alo's preservation order remains. He can pressure staff, then document every concern and allow the audit committee to act. I hold enough family shares to remove 2 directors. Olubunmi Alo's voice sharpened. Do that, and every finding will look like a family owner using power to save himself. Wale knew she was right. He hated her for being right. At the meeting, Mof spoke with restrained regret. This is not an attack on Wale, he said. It is protection for him and the company. His personal distress is understandable. However, an executive under emotional pressure should not direct communications, contact witnesses, or make decisions linked to an unresolved marital conflict. Wale listened without interrupting. One director asked whether he had paid Simiola's medical expenses. I offered to assume documented responsibility as the father of her child. Wale said. Murmurs moved around the table. So the child is yours? Another director asked. Wale's eyes hardened. Her medical privacy is not evidence in a governance review. Mofe lowered his gaze, performing dignity. Olubunmi called the vote. 7 in favor of temporary suspension. 3 against. 1 abstention. The resolution removed Wale Alo's executive authority for 30 days, pending preliminary findings. He remained a director but lost access to operational systems and staff instructions. Mofi became acting group chief executive. After the meeting, employees watched from behind glass walls as Wale packed 2 notebooks and a framed photograph of his father. Nobody spoke. He understood then what Simi had felt at the security desk. A title could disappear before your body understood that the room no longer belonged to you. Mofi stood at the office entrance. "This could have been avoided," he said. Wale placed the photograph in his bag. "Yes." Mofi looked almost satisfied. Wale continued, "I could have listened to my wife 8 months ago." The satisfaction vanished. Wale walked past him. Outside, his executive driver waited. Wale sent him home and drove himself to Surulere. He did not go upstairs. He called Simi from the car. "They suspended me." Silence, then she asked, "For how long?" 30 days, maybe permanently." "Who is acting CEO?" "Mof." Another silence. "I am sorry," she said. He closed his eyes. Her sympathy hurt more than anger. "I finally understand something," he said. "What?" "How quickly people stop seeing you once an institution decides what you are." Simi Alo's voice softened. "Do not compare one afternoon of suspension to what happened to me. I am not good. I am saying I should have understood without experiencing any part of it." She said nothing. Wei looked up at the window he believed belonged to her flat. "What do I do now?" he asked. "Tell the truth where it costs you." The line went quiet. Then she ended the call. Suspension did not give Wale peace. It gave him time. Time to read documents he had once approved by summary. Time to study the reports Zainab was allowed to share with all board members. Time to discover that leadership without access was mostly waiting, while other people decided what truth could safely be said. Mof used the first week well. He held a staff town hall and assured employees that Harbour Crest remained commercially and technically sound. He told lenders the investigation concerned documentation procedures, not building safety. He met buyers, Alo representatives, and promised handover would proceed after a limited review. Then his lawyers sent letters. Nosa received one accusing him of breaching his settlement agreement by sharing proprietary photographs. Ronke received one demanding that Palm Court Kitchen preserve all communications with Simi and cease making allegedly defamatory statements about Balogun Habitat Group. Simi received the worst. It demanded the return of every company document in her possession and warned that continued disclosure could expose her to claims for damages, injunctions, and criminal complaint. The letter arrived by courier on a Tuesday afternoon. Simi read it at Ronke Al's dining table while rain struck the windows. Her fingers began trembling halfway through the second page. Ronke reached for it. "Do not read the rest. I need to know what they are threatening." "You have a lawyer." "My lawyer charges by the hour. I will pay." "No." "Simi, stop turning every form of help into a trap." Simdi looked up sharply. Ronke did not retreat. "I know why you are careful," she said. "But independence is not refusing every hand. It is choosing hands that do not close around your throat." Simi Alo's eyes filled. She looked back at the letter. The words blurred. A tightening gripped the lower part of her abdomen. She pressed one hand there and waited. It passed. Then another came 8 minutes later. Ronke noticed her breathing. What is it?" "Nothing. That is not nothing." By the third tightening, Ronke had already called the clinic. Wale arrived at St. Catherine Aloes before the ambulance, because Ronkif phoned him despite Simi Alo's objection. He met them at the entrance as nurses pushed Simi inside on a wheelchair. What happened? Contractions, Ronka said. Too early. Wale Alo's face drained. He followed until a nurse blocked him. Only one support person. He looked at Simi. She was breathing through another contraction, fear naked in her eyes. Ronke, she said. The choice struck him, but he stepped back immediately. Go. Huh, he told Ronke. Stay with her. For 2 hours, Wale sat in the corridor under fluorescent lights. No title could shorten the wait. No money could guarantee the next sentence from the doctor. He watched families pass. A man in work clothes slept upright with a child Alo's backpack beneath his head. An elderly woman counted cash twice before entering the pharmacy. A cleaner mopped around Wale Alo's expensive shoes without recognizing him. He thought about the houses at Harbour Crest. Teachers, nurses, civil servants, people who had saved for years. People who might place babies in rooms beneath ceilings his company had certified. Uncertainty about safety was not an accounting problem. It was nights like this, multiplied across families. The doctor emerged at last. The contractions have settled, she said. There is no active labor now, but she needs close observation and strict rest. Stress is not the only cause of preterm contractions, but it is not helping. The baby? Stable. Wale exhaled so hard his shoulders dropped. Can I see her? When she agrees. This time, the waiting lasted only 10 minutes. Simi looked smaller in the hospital bed. Despite the curve of her pregnancy, Ronki sat beside her. Wale remained near the door. I am sorry, he said. Simi looked at him. Did you send the letter? No. She closed her eyes. He corrected himself before she had to. But it came from the company I led, through people I empowered. I will not hide behind authorization. Her eyes opened again. Wale took a document from his jacket. I signed an undertaking through my personal counsel. I will cover your maternity care and the baby Elo's expenses without requiring you to waive any claim, return home, or limit your evidence. Your lawyer can amend it. Simi did not reach for the paper. What about Nosa? Zainab Alo's counsel is applying for board protection against retaliation. I have also asked Olubunmi to suspend enforcement of his settlement until its circumstances are reviewed. Yes, I no longer have executive authority. The truth of that sat between them. Ronke rose. I will get water. After she left, Wale moved one chair closer. Mof wants the handover to continue, he said. Then stop it. I cannot order it. You own shares. I can use them to remove directors and retake control. Why have you not? Because then the investigation becomes my private war. Every witness will look bought. Every finding will look forced. Simi studied him. That is the first time I have heard you choose a fair process when power could give you a faster answer. It does not feel noble. It is not supposed to. Responsibility usually feels inconvenient. He almost smiled. Then his face became serious again. I can report the safety concerns to the Building Control Agency as a director and shareholder, not as CEO. That may damage the company. Yes, do it. He nodded. Simi turned her face toward the window. Wale? Yes? If you do this only to get me back, you will hate me when the cost arrives. He looked at her for a long moment. I am doing it because there are families who do not know what we know. She nodded once. That was not forgiveness. But it was the first answer she believed. The following morning, Wale Elo's lawyer submitted a formal safety disclosure to the Lagos State Building Control Agency and copied the board audit committee. The letter requested independent testing before occupation of the affected blocks. Mofi called within 11 minutes. You have crossed a line. Wale stood on the balcony of his home, watching dawn spread grey over the lagoon. The line should have been drawn before weak results disappeared. You have no technical basis to imply danger. I have a basis to require testing. You will trigger buyer panic. Then give buyers verified facts. You are destroying your father Alo's company over a woman who left you. Well, Alo's hand tightened around the phone. No. I nearly destroyed my marriage because I thought the company was more fragile than the truth. Mofe Alo's voice lowered. Do you think public confession will make you good? Your father made compromises too. My father is dead. Stop using him as a witness who cannot correct you. He ended the call. The agency acknowledged the disclosure and scheduled a site visit. That same day, Zainab Alo's forensic accountant found the money. The replacement laboratory, Meridian Verification Services, had been appointed through a consultancy called Aladi Project Solutions. The similarity of the name might have been coincidence. The shareholding was not. 40% belonged to a woman named Bisi Arawulo, Mofe Alo's sister-in-law. Another 30% belonged to a trust established for Mofe Alo's adult son. The consultancy had received 12 payments classified as technical coordination fees. Each payment fell just below the threshold, requiring audit committee approval. 3 days after the final payment, Meridian issued the clean concrete report. Zainab did not celebrate. She requested bank records, beneficial ownership documents, procurement emails, and the replacement laboratory Alo's raw data. The raw data created another problem. Some test samples listed in Meridian Alo's report had no chain of custody forms. 2 sample identification numbers duplicated numbers used on a different project. The photographs attached to the report had metadata dates that did not match the stated testing period. The evidence was no longer only about a report being revised. It suggested the confirmatory testing itself could not be trusted. Olubunmi called an emergency board meeting. Mofe challenged Zainab Alo's authority before it began. The investigation has expanded beyond its mandate, he said. Private family connections are being treated as proof of wrongdoing. Zainab placed the consultancy records on the table. Were you aware your sister-in-law and son Alo's trust held interests in a company paid by Harbour Crest? Mofe looked at the pages without touching them. My adult relatives conduct their own affairs. Did you disclose the relationship? I did not manage the vendor. Your office approved emergency engagement. Based on Procurement Alo's recommendation. Procurement. Alo's recommendation was drafted by an analyst who reported to your project director. That does not mean I controlled it. No, Zainab said. It means control must be determined by evidence. Mofe turned to the board. This is exactly my concern. The investigation now begins with suspicion and searches for a story. Olubunmi Alo's voice was cool. And your solution is to end it before the story is tested. The solution is proportion. We have an agency inspection in 48 hours. Allow technical experts to determine safety. Do not destroy a company because relatives invested in a consultancy. One director asked, why were the payments split below approval limits? Mofe replied, Millstone billing. Where are the milestones? Our operations will produce them. Zainab closed her notebook. Operations has been asked 3 times. The room fell silent. Mofe looked at Wale, who attended only as a non-executive director under suspension. You wanted this, he said. Wale met his eyes. I wanted the truth when it was cheap. I refused it. Now it is expensive. The board voted to place Mofe on administrative leave, pending further investigation. For the first time in decades, he lost access to the company. Security did not drag him out. Nobody shouted. Nobody clapped. He gathered his papers slowly. At the door, he turned to Wale. When the banks withdraw and workers lose salaries, remember this room. Truth does not feed families. Wale replied. Neither do buildings people cannot trust. Mof walked out, but he was not finished. Within hours, 3 lenders requested urgent meetings. A major investor postponed the financing decision. Harbour Crest buyers formed an online group demanding refunds. Subcontractors threatened to demobilize if outstanding invoices were not paid. The crisis Mof had predicted began arriving. Wale's first instinct was to return as CEO and take control. Olubunmi refused. Your suspension remains until preliminary findings are presented, she said. Mof is out. That does not erase your governance failures. The company needs leadership. It has an interim committee. Committees do not negotiate with banks. And unchecked CEOs created this problem. Wale stared at her. She did not soften. You want redemption to restore your authority, Olubunmi said. Sometimes accountability reduces authority permanently. The words offended him because they were true. He left the meeting without arguing further. At home, he found the house dark. For months after Simi left, he had kept staff working late, so he would not return to silence. Now he sent everyone home at 6. He entered the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. There was soup in a labeled container, prepared by the cook. He heated it himself and ate standing at the counter. His phone rang. Simi. The agency inspection found something, she said. How do you know? Noza called. They took core samples from blocks C and D and ordered temporary restrictions around 2 areas. Wale sat down. Restrictions are not a final finding. I know. He heard the caution in her voice. She refused panic just as firmly as she refused concealment. The buyers will hear rumors, he said. Then tell them exactly what is known and what is not. I am suspended. You are still a director. He looked at the untouched half of his stoop. He's Simi. May I ask you something? You may ask, do you hate me? A long silence followed. No, she said. Hating you would be easier. I remember who you were before every disagreement became disloyalty. Can that man come back? I do not know. What would convince you? Time. He closed his eyes. There was no check for time, no emergency meeting, no executive order. Only days, repeated honestly. I can give you that, he said. You cannot give it. You can only live through it. Then she told him the baby had kicked hard during the inspection news, and that Ronke claimed the child already disliked poor governance. Wale laughed before he could stop himself. Simi laughed, too. It lasted only a few seconds, but for the first time in 8 months, the sound between them did not carry a weapon. The final board hearing took place 9 days later. By then, the Building Control Agency had issued an interim notice. It did not declare Harbour Crest unsafe in its entirety. It did not predict collapse. It did something more disciplined and, in some ways, more damaging. It said the available quality records were insufficient to support occupation of 3 sections without additional structural assessment and remedial work. The company had marketed certainty. The agency documented uncertainty. That difference was enough to stop handover. Buyers were angry. Lenders were nervous. 2 subcontractors reduced staff at the site. Business commentators accused Balogun Habitat Group of incompetence. Others praised the independent review, but asked why it took a pregnant former employee and an injured engineer to force action. The question followed Wale everywhere. Why did nobody listen before the crisis? The answer was not one man, but one man had shaped the room in which silence became useful. The board hearing was held in the largest conference room at the Ikoyi headquarters. Zainab sat at one end with her team. Mofi arrived with 2 lawyers. Wale attended without counsel at first, then accepted Olubunmi Alo's insistence that governance accountability was not a matter for improvisation. Simi entered last. She wore a loose indigo dress and flat shoes. Her pregnancy was now too advanced for anyone to pretend not to see it. Ronke walked beside her, but stopped at the visitor chairs. As Simi passed the directors, conversations died. Some of the same people had once attended her wedding. Some had eaten in her home. One had sent flowers after her second failed fertility treatment. None had called when the company described her as a threat. Simi took the witness seat. Mof Alo's lawyer objected immediately. Mrs. Adegoke is involved in ongoing marital and employment disputes with Mr. Balogun. Her evidence is contaminated by personal interest. Zainab replied. Personal interest affects weight, not the existence of documents. Olubanmi nodded. Proceed. Zainab began with the timeline. Community complaints reached Simi's Alo's department. Simi visited Harbour Crest. Noza showed her failed test results. Noza refused certification. Operations instructed work to continue, while confirmatory testing was arranged. The original laboratory was removed. A replacement laboratory issued acceptable results through a vendor linked to Mofif Ilo's relatives. Nosa was injured in a scaffolding incident caused by multiple safety failures. A settlement was presented while he was medicated. Simi Alo's access was locked after files were sent from her credentials. Later forensic review showed the disputed email had been generated from an office network address during a period when Simi was recorded entering a community meeting across Lagos. The login was hers. The device fingerprint was not. Someone had used cached credentials from a shared workstation in the executive support area. The device had been assigned to Chinedu Opara, the technical aide who later resigned. Zainab Alo's team located him in Accra. He agreed to a remote interview after receiving independent legal advice. His testimony was not a cinematic confession. He denied fabricating the email himself, but he admitted that Mofe Alo's executive assistant instructed him to export Simi Alo's access history and prepare a risk demonstration, showing how confidential material could have left the company. Chinedu said he believed the exercise was for an internal security review. The supposedly real email appeared afterward using the same device. He also admitted releasing Wale Alo's digital signature on the laboratory replacement memo and the final concrete report because both arrived through Mofe Alo's pre-clearance queue. Did I review the documents? Wale asked. Zainab looked at him. The evidence shows you received automated notifications. There is no evidence you opened the attachments before approval. One director exhaled, almost relieved. Wale did not share the relief, so I allowed my name to certify what I did not read. Yes, Mofi Alo's lawyer stood. Delegated approval is standard corporate practice. It does not prove Mr. Alade intended deception. Zainab nodded. Correct. That is why we examined the financial relationships and communications. The forensic accountant displayed a chart. Funds traveled from Harbour Crest project accounts to Alad Project Solutions. From there, part of the money paid Meridian verification services. Another part went to a property company beneficially owned by Mofe Alo's son Alo's trust. That property company purchased an Abuja apartment later used by Mofe. Mofe leaned toward his lawyer. The lawyer asked, "Was the apartment registered in Mr. Alade Elo's name?" "No," the accountant said. "Did he receive funds directly?" "Not in the records available." "Then you are asking the board to infer benefit." "Yes," Zainab said. "Alongside undisclosed, related party interests, split payments, absent procurement milestones, unreliable laboratory records and operational instructions designed to prevent circulation of the failed result." Mof finally spoke. "I used the apartment when visiting Abuja. That does not mean I owned it. My relatives invested in companies without consulting me. This entire presentation takes normal family and business relationships and paints them as conspiracy. Olubunmi folded her hands. Did you disclose any of those relationships? No, because I did not consider them relevant. Did you know Meridian had incomplete chain of custody records? No. Did you direct staff not to circulate Durojai Alo's result? I directed staff to await validation. Did you tell Wale that Simi posed a commercial threat? I reported documented concerns. Did you instruct human resources to route her employment inquiries to legal? I advised caution. Did you approve the letter delivered to her this week? As acting CEO, I approved protection of company property. Simi had remained silent through every answer. Now Olubunmi turned to her. Mrs. Adagoke, tell the board what occurred from your perspective. Simi placed both hands on the table. I did not begin by investigating fraud, she said. I began by answering residents who were afraid of cracks in homes they had not finished paying for. Her voice was steady, neither loud nor weak. I went to the site because operations did not provide a clear engineering response. NOSA showed me test figures. I asked my husband to commission an independent review. Instead, my access was removed and I was treated as the source of risk. Mofi Alo's lawyer interrupted. You copied confidential material. I preserved evidence that was disappearing. You removed company property. I retained records connected to potential safety concerns and later provided them through counsel to the investigation. I did not sell them, publish them, or demand money. You left your marriage after being questioned about unauthorized access. Simi looked directly at him. I left because the person who shared my bed spoke to me as though his corporation had more right to safety than I did. The lawyer sat down. Simi turned to the board. You can remove Mof today. You can call him the problem and restore Wale tomorrow. That would be easy. It would also be dishonest. Several directors shifted. Wale did not, she continued. Emof acted through a culture that already existed. Project bonuses rewarded dates, not the quality of concerns raised. Internal audit lacked independence. Legal letters were used before facts were established. Employees learned that bringing bad news without a solution could end their careers. My husband approved those conditions. One director frowned. Are you saying Mr. Balogun participated in falsifying reports? No. I am saying he made it easier for people to believe he did not want to know. The sentence struck the room harder than accusation. Wale looked down once, then raised his head. Simi went on. Respect is not standing up in a restaurant because somebody insults a woman you know. Respect is building systems where a waitress, engineer, laborer, or junior analyst can speak before you know their connection to power. Ronke Alo's eyes filled at the back of the room. Nosa testified by video. He explained the failed samples carefully. He refused exaggerated questions about collapse. He described what proper procedure should have been. Stop affected work, preserve samples, commission independent core tests, review mix design and curing records, then determine remedial action. Would that delay the project? A director asked. Yes. Could it increase costs? Yes. Then why should a company take that step before danger is certain? Nosa stared into the camera. Because safety decisions do not wait for certainty of disaster. They respond to credible uncertainty before families move in. The board recessed for 40 minutes. When members returned, Wale asked to speak before the vote. He stood without notes. For years, speeches had been one of his strengths. He knew how to turn numbers into ambition and risk into confidence. This time there was nothing to sell. My name appears on the final report, he began. I did not alter the figures. I did not know about the related party vendor. I did not instruct anyone to fabricate an email against Simi. A few directors watched him expectantly, as though waiting for the defense. It didn't come. But I approved a delegated signing system I did not supervise. I allowed internal audit to depend administratively on the executive it might need to investigate. I tied praise and bonuses to delivery speed. I told leaders not to bring me problems without solutions. When my wife brought me evidence that did not fit the story I wanted, I questioned her loyalty before I questioned the system. Simi looked at him. Wale Alo's voice roughened. I did not create every lie. I created conditions where lies arrived polished and truth arrived looking disobedient. Nobody moved, he continued. I am not asking the board to restore me because I have admitted failure. Confession is not correction. I propose the following. He listed each measure clearly. No occupation of the affected blocks until independent engineers certified remedial work. Full reimbursement or revised purchase options for buyers who did not wish to wait. A compensation and medical review for Nosa, Bamidele, and every worker injured in the scaffolding incident. Using independent counsel. Recovery of executive bonuses linked to false or unsupported certifications. A protected reporting channel directly to the audit committee. Structural independence for internal audit and compliance. Mandatory disclosure of related party interests. No use of confidentiality agreements to prevent reporting of safety or regulatory concerns. Correction of Simi Ilo's employment record, and payment of lost earnings to be determined independently, not negotiated privately through him. Referral of evidence suggesting falsification, obstruction, or undisclosed benefit to the appropriate authorities. And my position, he said. The board should decide it after considering my conduct, not my surname. Mofi laughed under his breath. Everyone heard. Wale turned to him. Mofi rose. You think this performance makes you different from me? You enjoyed every result I delivered. Every award, every ribbon cutting, every profit forecast. Now that the machinery has become ugly in public, you stand apart and call it mine. Wale faced him fully. You are right about one thing. I benefited. The answer seemed to unsettle Mof more than denial would have. Wale continued. That is why I am placing my name in the report instead of hiding behind yours. Mofe Alo's face twisted. You will ruin thousands of people to satisfy one bitter woman. Simi stood slowly. I am not bitter because I worked as a waitress, she said. There is dignity in honest work. The shame belongs to men who sat in offices and made dishonesty look respectable. Mofe looked at her with open contempt. You believe these directors care about your dignity? They care because headlines have turned. Maybe, Simi said. That is why systems matter more than good intentions. Olubunmi called the room to order. The board voted on 6 resolutions. Mofi Alo's employment was terminated for serious misconduct, non-disclosure of related party interests, interference with records, and retaliation against witnesses, subject to further legal proceedings. The company accepted the independent remediation plan. The buyer protection program was approved. The worker settlement review was approved. The governance reforms were approved. Wale Alo's suspension was extended until completion of a leadership suitability assessment. He was not restored as CEO that day. That mattered. Justice did not become a stage where one powerful man fell and another returned to the throne. Outside the conference room, reporters crowded the entrance. Mofe left through a private exit with his lawyers. Simi could have done the same. Instead, she stood beside Zainab and Olubunmi for a brief statement. A reporter shouted, Mrs. Adagok, did you expose the company because your husband left you? Simi looked directly at the cameras. I left my husband, she said, and I raised these concerns before I knew I was pregnant. Please report the sequence correctly. Another asked. Are you returning to him now? This is a safety and governance matter, not a romance announcement. Do you consider yourself vindicated? Simi paused. Noza Elo's leg is still injured. Buyers are still waiting. Workers may lose income during remediation. Vindication is not enough. Correction must reach the people who paid the cost. Her statement was replayed across television that evening. The next morning, Palm Court Kitchen Aloe's phone did not stop ringing. Some callers wanted reservations. Others offered corporate events to prove support. Ronki accepted only bookings the restaurant could handle. When one businessman offered to reward her for protecting the CEO Aloe's wife, Ronka refused. She worked for me because she was qualified, she said. Do not reduce fair employment to charity because the employee became famous. Arno Saal's old settlement was set aside by agreement. Independent lawyers reviewed the accident. The company paid for continued rehabilitation, compensated lost earnings, and removed the admission of fault from his file. Bamidele and the other injured workers received similar reviews. Noza later accepted a role with a professional engineering body, helping smaller contractors build reporting systems for safety concerns. He did not become rich overnight. His leg did not magically heal. Some mornings, pain still reached him before he stood. But his children no longer saw their father treated as a man who caused his own injury by speaking too much. Harbour Crest required expensive remediation. Core testing showed that not every structure was deficient. Several sections met design requirements. Others needed strengthening, waterproofing correction, and closer quality assurance. The truth was complicated, which made it more credible than panic or denial. Some buyers accepted delayed handover. Others received refunds with financing costs. The company sold non-essential land to support the program and negotiated lender extensions. Profits fell. Nobody died from reduced profits. Several executives lost bonuses. 4,000 jobs did not vanish, as Mofe had predicted, though some contracts slowed, and the company endured a difficult year. The board published a detailed account of the failures, actions, and unresolved risks. The report included Wale Aloe's decisions. He insisted on that. Simi Aloe's employment record was formally corrected. An independent assessor calculated lost earnings and legal costs. She accepted the compensation because it was payment for documented harm, not a gift from her former husband. She did not return to Balogun Habitat Group. Instead, a housing accountability organization invited her to lead a program connecting residents, engineers, and developers before disputes became crises. She accepted after negotiating maternity leave. Wale attended the leadership assessment for 3 months. The process included board interviews, management feedback, governance training, and executive counseling. Some employees described him as brilliant but inaccessible. Others said he rewarded people who gave confident answers and intimidated those who needed more time. One junior analyst wrote anonymously, "Mr. Balogun says he wants honesty, but his face punishes hesitation." That sentence disturbed him for days. He began changing small habits before any decision about his title. When advisors brought problems, he stopped demanding immediate solutions. He asked what facts were missing. He asked who carried the risk. He asked whose voice had not entered the room. He also began therapy outside the company, not to win Simi back. At first, he still told himself that was not the reason. Eventually, he admitted it was one reason, but not a sufficient one. The larger reason was his daughter. He did not want her to grow up watching a father who treated accountability as humiliation. Simi went into labor at 39 weeks. It began at 4 in the morning with a pain she first mistook for the usual pressure in her back. By 6, Ronka was timing contractions. By 7, they were on the way to St. Catherine Aloes. Ronka called Wale from the car. He arrived wearing mismatched shoes. Under other circumstances, Simi would have laughed at him. Another contraction took the laughter away. At the admission desk, the nurse asked who would accompany Simi. She looked at Ronka, then at Wale. Both, until the delivery room, she said. Wale did exactly what he was told. He did not call senior management at the clinic. He did not demand updates from staff already doing their jobs. He held Simi Alo's water bottle, carried her bag, and remained silent when silence helped. Hours later, when labor intensified, Simi gripped his hand so hard his wedding ring scar whitened. "You did this," she said through clenched teeth. Ronka laughed. At last, a finding nobody can dispute. Even Simi laughed once before another contraction came. Their daughter was born shortly after sunset. She cried immediately, furious at the light. The nurse placed her against Simi Alo's chest. Wale stood beside the bed, tears running down his face without permission. He did not reach until Simi nodded. When he held the baby, his entire body became careful. "Hello," he whispered. "I am your father." Simi watched him. "Being her father is not a reward for what you corrected," she said softly. "It is a responsibility you carry every day." Wale nodded over the child Also's small head. "I know. They named her Dara, because the name carried the sense of goodness and preciousness without belonging to either parent. Alo's ego." Wale registered his paternity and signed a co-parenting agreement prepared by separate lawyers. He covered Dara Alo's needs transparently. He did not use money to demand access outside the agreed schedule. He did not post photographs online. He did not allow the company Alo's communications team to turn the birth into reputation repair. For the first months, he visited Simi Alo's flat at arranged times. Sometimes she stayed in the room. Sometimes she used the hour to sleep. He learned to warm expressed milk, fold tiny clothes, and recognize the difference between Dara Alo's hungry cry and tired cry. He arrived late once because of traffic and found the door locked. The old Wale would have argued that Lagos traffic was beyond his control. The new one apologized and lost 30 minutes of the visit. Trust returned in measurements too small for headlines. 6 months after the board hearing, Wale was reinstated as group chief executive by a narrow vote. His authority was different. Internal audit reported directly to the audit committee. Compliance had protected access to the board. Delegated signatures required two-factor confirmation and random post-approval review. Executive bonuses included safety, complaint resolution, and employee reporting indicators, not only schedule and profit. Wale accepted the limits publicly. Privately, he sometimes hated them. That honesty mattered too. Change was not becoming a man who never felt the old instinct. It was refusing to obey it. Simi Alo's new housing accountability program held its first public forum at a modest conference center in Ikeja. Developers, residents, engineers, and labor representatives attended. Wale sat in the third row, not on stage. During questions, a young site supervisor asked how to report pressure without losing his job. Simi answered, "Document facts. Use formal channels. Seek independent advice. Do not rely only on private promises from powerful people." And organizations must understand that a reporting channel is useless if the person accused controls the reporter Alo's future. Wale wrote the sentence down. After the forum, he found her outside beneath a covered walkway. Rain had begun, tapping steadily on the roof. Dara slept against Simio's chest in a carrier. "You were good," Wale said. "I know," he smiled. "You have not changed. I have changed plenty. I am simply not pretending uncertainty so you can feel useful." They stood listening to the rain. Wale reached into his pocket, then stopped. Simi noticed. What is there? Our rings. Her expression closed slightly. I am not proposing, he said quickly. I have carried them for months. That may itself be unhealthy. It is at least inconvenient tailoring. He laughed. Then he became serious. I want to ask whether we can begin again. Simi adjusted the sleeping baby. From where? Not from the night you left. Good. That place was built on silence. From here. She looked at him for a long time. Here is not trust yet, she said. Here is evidence that trust may be possible. I will take that. You do not take it. You participate in it, he nodded. Fair. She held out her free hand. Wale looked at it, then took it. She did not ask for the ring. He did not offer it again. Together, they walked through the rain toward the car, moving slowly, because Simi refused to run while carrying Dara and Wale had finally learned that arriving safely mattered more than arriving first. There are people who do not lose their families because love disappears. They lose them because they only recognize truth when it arrives wearing authority. Wale did not falsify the first test report with his own hand. But his impatience, pride, and dependence on one trusted man created space where dishonesty could operate. That is a difficult lesson because it removes the comfort of saying, I did not know. Leadership is not only responsibility for the orders a person gives. It is also responsibility for the behavior a system rewards, the questions it discourages, and the people it teaches everyone else to ignore. Simi Alo's waitress uniform did not reduce her value. Honest work never did. What revealed character was how people treated her, before they knew she had once been an executive, before they knew the child Alo's father was wealthy, and before defending her offered any social reward. In real situations involving workplace retaliation, construction safety, pregnancy, employment references, or confidential records, careful documentation and independent professional advice matter. Medical decisions belong with qualified health professionals. Legal concerns should be reviewed by independent counsel. Safety concerns should reach the appropriate technical and regulatory bodies. Private promises from powerful people are not substitutes for accountable processes. From my own point of view, the most satisfying moment was not when Mofe lost his office or when Wei returned to his. It was the moment Simi refused to let the board solve a systemic failure by naming only one villain. Real respect is larger than rescuing someone in public. It is creating conditions where their voice is worth examining before their pain becomes a spectacle. And sometimes, the strongest proof of love is not bringing someone back into the old home. It is rebuilding yourself so they no longer need to escape from it.